Hey y'all, hope you're doing well. I want to talk about two things today. I want to talk about first picking a topic for your essay and kind of how I go about doing it, and then how to organize your essay. So I'm going to talk about picking a topic first. Maybe you know what you want to talk about, maybe you don't. I'm going to show you how I usually tell my students to do it, and we'll go from there. But so usually what I tell my students to do is start at one of those databases that I've already been talking about, I think a lot now, Opposing Viewpoints. Okay, and so I went into Opposing Viewpoints today, and what I did was I decided to browse all the issues. And so I started thinking about what do I do when I get here? Like, if you see something and you're like, oh, I really like this, maybe you can kind of dig into it and see what some of the viewpoints are. I'm going to tell you that not all of them are perfect, but a lot of them I went into and I could find a paper I want to talk about. So I'm going to talk about two kind of things that I just did. So in my mind, I was thinking about police brutality. It's something that's kind of relevant right now. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, what would be my argument if I just said police brutality? It's wrong? Well, yeah, I feel like most of us would argue that it's wrong. But I think it's more the way that we treat it and how we would kind of fix police brutality that is more the issue. So what I did was I went in here to police reform because I thought that was kind of interesting, and I started looking at these, and I was like, okay, there's some kind of interesting ideas, which most of these weren't. I looked at those and I was like, oh, here's some ideas in my head. So I was like, okay, police brutality. Well, I can't really just argue police brutality. So instead, what I would look at are just kind of different ways that people say that would be a good or bad way to end that police brutality. And so one thing that we hear a lot about right now is defunding the police. And I think you could make an argument for either against or for defunding the police, and I think that would be something you could really talk about. Militarizing the police, and that would be another one that I think you could talk about. And so I think there are lots of things that you could look at in here, and so kind of think, okay, I can't just say police brutality is bad. That's not going to help. Another one that I just kind of looked at just for y'all, I went to something that I always kind of make fun of when somebody tells me they're going to do this paper, and it's eating disorders, because they're always like, okay, I'm going to do eating disorders because they're bad. Okay, no, we can't just say they're bad. So what I do is I went in here and I was like, well, okay, this is one that is often problematic. I still don't think this one, pro eating disorder posts evade filters, I don't think that one has anything that I could really write about, but I kind of started looking over here, and I liked this one, fast food is physically addictive. That's not about eating disorders when I think about anorexia, bulimia, but it is actually an eating disorder. Overeating is too. So I thought, oh, that would be kind of cool. And then I also think, I've had students write before, altered fashion magazine photographs do cause eating disorders, so I could also see why they would say they don't. So that's kind of what I do, but I think my preliminary space would be to go back to this space and then click into one of them, really read the stuff if you're interested in it, and look at it. And I went through a couple in here, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to look at a bunch. And so that kind of is leading me on to, so those, I think that's how I would work. Picking my topic. And then I'm going to show you something else about organizing your paper. If you've been watching my videos, this sheet is not going to come as much of a surprise to you. So, common ways to organize your paper. I like this because I went ahead and actually put a sample in there so you could see what I was talking about. So what I decided I was going to look at in this is we are going to say the Electoral College should be abolished. That's going to be your thesis sentence. So obviously in your introduction, you're going to introduce your issue, and your claim will be your thesis sentence. Okay? So then in my next paragraph or section, you're going to give a history of the Electoral College, which you can find, I think, easily on Opposing Viewpoints or Credo Reference. So then, if I'm doing an active paper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give my reasons for why it should be abolished. Okay? And so what I said was reason A, it creates the possibility for the loser of the popular vote to win the electoral vote. And I'm not going to go into each of these. And so basically what you do here, this is going to be something like my topic sentence, and I would support my topic sentence with the information that I had found. And then I have my next reason and my next reason. And so I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. And so then my refutation, and that's where you look at the other side, the opposing viewpoint. And so you could look at the refutation, but then obviously what you're going to do is you're going to argue against that, and then you have your conclusion. So what I did was I showed you the upside of that. It's a very active argument. You're saying, here's my thoughts, my thoughts, my thoughts. Even though I don't ever want you to say, I think, and I don't say it here, I think it creates the possibility. Don't do that. Just say it creates the possibility. It's very active, though. Downsides, you'll end on a refutation, and that could hurt your argument. I don't really see much of a downside to going this way, though. So when I say this, this is like an itty-bitty downside. Okay, and so then a reactive argument. And so basically, I'm going to say I had the same claim. Our issue was the Electoral College. My claim was that it should be abolished. History of the Electoral College is going to be the same. So right now the papers are all the same. So then how you're going to do it instead of having your reasons, you're going to look at the reasons that people have for opposing your own view. So one thing people like about the Electoral College is it makes sure that states with smaller populations are still granted a voice in the election. Okay? And so the way you would do this is you would talk about that for a minute, and then you would refute that point. So why is that not an effective point for you? And then there's no chance of a runoff election or a national recount. That's probably a good thing, right? But why is that not strong enough to abolish? Or why should I abolish it anyway? And then usually the winner of the Electoral College and popular vote are the same, even though, most of the time they are throughout American history. And so you would refute that. And obviously, I think you could look at the races, presidential races of 2000 and 2016 as kind of opposing that. So basically what you're doing is you're looking at what people who disagree with you say. You're refuting it. What someone who disagrees with you says, refute that. What someone who disagrees with you says, and you're going to refute that. And that's your, and then you have your conclusion. So some people like this because they feel like it more fairly looks at the issue throughout. You're looking at the opposing side all the time. And then you may feel like you look at the issue more fairly. It kind of depends on you. And then but the downside is you're only reacting to the ideas of others. So some people say, well, it's not quite as creative. But I mean, in this situation, I feel like we all know the reasons for the Electoral College either way. So I don't think you're married to having to be creative. So I think either one of these are good. I think this one makes more sense. But I've had students who really felt like they enjoyed doing it this way. But I will say most of the time my students go this way. Okay, so that's what I have for picking your topic and organizing your paper. We're going to look at a sample paper, so if you're like, okay, this is just like a tiny little outline, it is. We'll get more. Okay, y'all have a good day.